Galahs, often referred to as the pink and grey parrots of Australia, or for those birding enthusiasts who like binomial names, Eolophus rosicapilla, or for bird enthusiasts, my crazy parrot. These are flock birds. Though they have domesticated into the city areas, the flocks there are only small, but out in the dry, arid areas of Australia, the flocks are gigantic. Here, several hundred birds gather around a farmer's homestead, for they know that there's a cattle trough and water is available. And being flock birds, they like to eat, breed and drink together. Being typical cetaciforms, where both the upper and lower mandible are mobile, the feet zygodactylic, where 2 toes point forward and 2 backwards. But the other feature of the cetaciforms is that they are lovebirds. When roosting, if not asleep, they are allopreening, or in other words, preening the feathers of their mate. More so in areas that the individual bird finds hard to reach, the back of the head, under the chin. And many of you who have the galah as a pet will find that they love to be scratched in areas that they cannot reach. Strong flyers, and the main component of their diet is dry grass seed, but they will eat other things like green grass, herbaceous material, roots, and also flowers. Eating mostly dry seed, they need plenty of water to help break down the pericarp to extract nutrient from the seed. So galahs, in combination with other seed eaters, can often be found at waterholes of a morning and evening. At watering points like this, we can tell the male from the female, for the female bird has an orange to a pink iris, whereas a male bird has a much darker eye. And we can also observe the crests, for a crest is the sign of a cockatoo. Parrots do not have crests. In all the cockatoos, they bond by playful activity like this. One may think it's aggressive, but to them it's purely play. One of the problems with a cockatoo, it likes to play with plastic wires. The galah is no exception to this, and electrical providers are very conscious of the expenses involved repairing the damage that cockatoos make. Perhaps the worst is the sulphur-crested, but the galah is not far behind. Their bills are always active, including chewing on plastic. And as the galah moves more into urban areas, this expense will go up. Sports fields where there is good grass are the main attraction keeping galahs around cities, but as mentioned, the flocks are much smaller than what we see in rural areas, usually less than 20, but I have seen up to 40 birds. In a previous video on galahs, we discussed the problem of the bird becoming egg-bound. So this video will concentrate more on the family aspects of the galah. A large hollow in an Angophora eucalypt. The male galah sits atop the hollow, and look at his movements. He's moving his head from side to side and then does a little bit of a flicking action. This is all to get the attention of the female. This bird has a dark eye, we know it's a male, and the female is in an adjacent tree not too far away, observing what he is doing. With cockatoos and other cetaciforms, it's usually the male that shows a nesting hole to the female, but it seems that it is the female who makes the final decision. And the female has just flown in. The galah, being a large cockatoo, needs a good-sized hollow. This is the perfect nesting site. Well, you may think that when they find a good nesting site like this, they will do a little bit of their typical lovebird activity, a little bit of allopruning, a little bit of beak clicking, a little bit of beak togetherness, scratching on the head, etc. But when they've found a very nice nesting hole, the male gets rather excited because the female sits there for a while and just looks at it. But then something more may develop. The male leans over the back of the female and continues with a combination of bobbing and flicking movements. with a little bit more gesturing from the male. The female goes into a mounting position ready for copulation. However, it does look as though she's about to go to sleep. Galahs and the cockatooidae do a significant amount of copulation at the time of nesting around the nesting hole. Nesting holes this size are hard to find. The greater majority, as we will see later, of hollow branches that cockatoos and galahs use are in dead trees, so this one is a real bonus. The bark on the Angostura trees is rather smooth, and as you can see in this case, it's a little bit slippery. The female keeps falling down. She also keeps turning around and nibbling at the toes of the male. But this seems to be a fairly common feature during copulation with galahs. However, the copulation wasn't successful here. There was no cloacal contact because the female slipped down off the slippery bark. Paradoxically, there is more success 30 metres above the ground on a thin twig. Notice also the allopreening manoeuvres of the female underneath during the copulation act. What happened to the nesting hollow? The male returned, but when the female went to fly in, there was a large white bird with a yellow crest. This sulphur-crested cockatoo made it known that they were not welcome. 2 weeks later, the sulphur-crested cockatoos took possession of the nesting hole, and I should mention that they had also used it as a breeding hollow the year before. Mating activity with the galah increases once they have found a nesting hollow, but usually they will do the mating in very close proximity to the hollow, for leaving it may allow other birds like we have seen to take possession. Again with this pair, a little bit of head bobbing and flicking. Before making a final determination of a nesting hollow, the galah pair will do many inspections. It's a little bit like someone buying a house. They will look at quite a few before deciding on the right spot. Once a decision has been made, their bills become very active at chewing, opening the entrance and then shaving off the internal cavity in the limb. The shavings then go onto the floor, making a place where the eggs will not roll away. This is supplemented by the bringing in of twigs and leaves. Once the decision has been made as to the site, one of the birds will usually hang around as a sign of possession. The other bird will go out and collect leaves and twigs and bring them into the nesting hole. Interestingly, this bird will give them a good shake to remove any insects or other potential pathogens before taking it into the nesting site. Being large birds and excellent in flight, threats in the air from eagles and raptors is minimal. Their main threat is loss of habitat and nesting sites. As to predatory threats, there is one in particular, the Australian goanna. In Australia, we have 25 species of varanus. Common names are the monitor lizard, lace monitor, parenti, sand lizard, sandstone monitor, but the greater majority of these are good tree climbers. They are carnivores, spending a lot of time hunting in the hollows of trees. And here a pair have a nest in this hollow tree with 2 entrances, and the nest is 10 metres above the ground. The goanna can easily climb that height and raid the nest, taking the eggs and the young. The Galah eggs are laid in these cavities, and the Altricial chicks are cared for. The adults feed them by regurgitation of the pre-digested food. Once fledged, these grey-washed chicks are still fed by the adult, for as yet they don't have the enzymatic processes for breaking down the pericarp of the seed. Here with twins you can see both the male and the female adult parrots feeding the young. The young have a voracious appetite, and their call is rather disturbing to the adults, and if they don't get fed, the young keep calling with that whining sound. To keep up with the rapid growth of the chick, the adults are constantly out grazing. But the adults can't return too quickly, for it takes time to get adequate digestion to feed the young. But as time progresses, the young become independent. This fledging with an adult has the typical incessant whining call. Just watch the adult throat. The call of the young bird triggers regurgitation, and a temporary silence follows. The young galahs develop quickly. They will often be seen flying together and coming together in a crash situation on perches. They haven't quite yet developed the balanced landing of the adults. It isn't long before they lose the dirty wash down the front and then the crest, and have a beautiful pink crest and become a classical pink and grey galah. This concludes our video, so thank you for watching. The Plumes of Oz do periodic releases of Australian birds in the wild, and if you would like to subscribe to this channel, you will get automatic notification of our next release.